Welcome to the Magic in the Cloud podcast, where exceptional visionaries reveal the personal journeys behind their remarkable success. This is a conversation with leaders who've transformed industries by navigating pivotal moments, making bold decisions, and cultivating extraordinary teams. We explore the turning points that define their careers, those instances where intuition met strategy and everything changed. It's an intimate look at the leadership philosophies that drive revolutionary outcomes, with cloud solutions as the quiet enabler. Here are your hosts, Joseph Griffith and Ryan Golombeski.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Magic in the Cloud. My next guest today, talk about the ultimate of success in a side hustle, becoming your full-time gig, being recognized by leadership for all kinds of ROI, and having fun while he does it. This guy, it focuses on warehouse turnaround of operations, and as mentioned, from a side hustle to a full-time gig. Everybody, please welcome my next guest, Jason Zapp. Jason, welcome to the show.
Joe, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, dude. What really stands out when we met is the side hustle turning into something legit. A lot of people talk to me about wanting to start something on the side. It may or may not be parallel to what they do full time. It often has involved in it some kind of passion that they can't get from the full-time hustle. But let's start first with how it went from a side hustle to what it is today. Share with the audience how that happened.
Just a little bit of working on the side, providing some extra support to businesses with warehouse support, WMS support, logistics support, just in scaling operations, just when an organization, just kind of helping when they're growing quickly, really fast, and things kind of come unraveled really, really quickly, and you just need a little bit of support in that area. And I've just been able to kind of come along and help them put things in order to help them, as they scale. On the side, right? It's just been something I've done on the side. And I've been able to do it and make a little bit of money on the side, right? I've had a friend, a colleague of mine, who called me one day and said, "Hey, I got a company who would be willing to pay you to do this, like, for a long time if you want to do this, right? And it's an opportunity, like, if you want me to put you in front of them." I said, "Sure, yeah, let's have this conversation, right?" So so I had this conversation with this organization, and it led to a couple of years of doing projects for this very publicly traded company. Yeah.
And so I think what I'm hearing is, and this often comes up with other guests who've done this and with people I talk to. So you're in a full-time gig, you're getting pinged once in a while on the side to help people. Someone comes along with a long-term gig, right, a contract, and that helped you mitigate some of the financial risk and some of the time risk. Of course, nothing's for sure. That helped make that decision. And then what you found was success there. And is it fair to say that you worried a lot less about the financial and finding the next gig? Like I always hear people say, I over worried about those things. Like, in the end, if you can find the next gig, finding the next gig is actually not as difficult as you think. Is that fair? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
yeah, no,
you have to overcome those concerns.
No, you're absolutely right. There's there'll always be like spells, where you're not doing work, or there's always times like I've taken off a month at a time because I wanted to, right? I just didn't book anything because I needed a break, right? We just go in for years on end, right? And I got to press pause, right? And there's just a pipeline of customers coming in, and if you put forth, this is what I found, right? Is that if you put forth the work and you over deliver, the customers will always be there, right? And you put your price point high, but you over deliver, right? And this is what that's been always been my the quality of the work that I put in is that you know, regardless of whatever, like you always don't want to put in just the bare minimum or just give what
Yeah.
you say you're going to do, but you just constantly over deliver, and yeah, that's kind of been like my yeah like the point there that the foundation that I've tried to build off of.
I think that's a really, really important point for folks. What you're saying is if you give a little bit more than expected, that contributes to the client wanting to retain you and or refer you and or a testimonial towards future clients saying, hey, whether or not you think this guy's expensive, you'll get every bit of your value and more out of this guy.
Yeah, and what
So yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you're right, 100%. And even in um, the the discovery stage, right? If you find a way to start working with them to help them before before you are getting paid, I guess you could say, you start,
Yeah, dude.
you start delivering
Yeah.
and providing value, right? Like you're showing how valuable you are to them, right? I mean, this is what I've found to be successful for me, right? And it's proven to be, it's proven to be, just all you want to do is solve people's problems, right? Solve people's problems and be valuable to them, and it's like you'll have business. That's just what I found to be fruitful for me.
You hit another nugget there, man, which is whether it's consulting or whether it's going for a full-time job. From a consulting perspective, you already said, even before you get started, act like you're already working there. And I know in my recruiting days, when people used to interview for jobs, they used to ask like, well, what do I do, to prep for the interview and after the interview? I'm like, both the prep before and after the interview, follow up and talk like you're already working there. So for example, read the press releases. This is a job interview. Read the press releases and say to the person you're talking to, hey, the new building in China, how's that affect your job? The irony is that person probably doesn't even know that, but they perceive you working there, right? 'Cause you're thinking about the business. And then post follow-up, you're saying things like, hey, thanks for the meeting. I thought about that problem you discussed, and maybe the new acquisition in China would be helpful. I don't know a whole lot, but you're actually already acting like you're working there. You don't have the job. You're saying as a consultant, if there's anything you can do 2 steps before you get started, that's already putting you ahead of the game.
100%.
Yeah, dude.
Just you're thinking about them, you're sending the message out, that you're thinking about their problems, that you're already problem solving for them, that you want to that you're creating a strategy already, right? That you've already like thinking about their business. I mean, I mean, like I just, and not to get off on a tangent, right? But I had
Yeah, you're
a
not,
mentor.
dude. Believe me, don't. This is all about tangents. This show.
This I had a mentor of mine, right? And I love this woman to death, and she said to me, like there's always an answer, right? And this is at my early stage of like the early stages of my executive career, right? And she said, don't ever give up. There's always an answer for anything that you want, right? You'll always get an answer, right? And I found that to be just a pivotal point in my career, right? Is that there's you just all like people they just take, like they just take what somebody says is just, that's it. That so and so said no, you know what I mean, that's it, right? That's my answer. And it's like, really, if that's not the answer you want, like you just keep shaking that tree, right, until you get what you need, right, until what's best for your business, right? And yeah, she's a very smart lady, and I learned a lot from her. Yeah.
That's a real quick side tangent question. Have you had the opportunity, and have you said thank you?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that and it was not too long ago, right? It was maybe a month or 2 months ago. And, it was through text. We were talking and I said, that I never forgot what you've taught me over the years,
Yeah,
right? It's
man.
just, I appreciate it. And I thank you. Right. It's just those little gems of advice that somebody gives you when you're starting your career out, right? That just kind of catapults you to the next level, right? And you just don't know that, right? And those are the little things that now that I've gotten to the place that I'm at now, right? I want to try to help the next generation of people, right? Next generation of you know, of people.
Yeah, we'll touch on this guy later, but you and I know each other through a friend, Fatimand, and you're giving me some really great ideas about. My first recommendation would be make sure you're writing all this down. I decided to do that like 15 years ago, so now I have a document called the Griffith Rules of Work, which just started as a joke, right? And now you start to look back and say, "Holy crap!" Look what Jason said to me in 1995. Look what Fatimand said to me in 2001. And they all start to come together and like, oh my gosh, these are the kind of things you want to teach somebody, right? I mean, you can certainly teach somebody, warehouse management methodologies and asset recovery strategies and all that. That's all really, really important. And, if our podcast was called 1+1 = 2, that would fit, right? But we're imagining the cloud, which is all based on 1+1 = 3, and those to me, man, they're the things that make a difference. But we could have a great show with you, me, Fatimand, saying, what about this? What about that? Like all these quote unquote, I always call them crazy, dude. That doesn't mean any disrespect. It just means like, come on. It can't possibly be that there's always an answer or mentality really makes a difference. Like, I'm going to tell you right now. And Jason, you and I don't know each other well enough to know how smart you are. I'm sure your IQ is average or better. But to me, it doesn't matter, right? It's those little things that make a difference. I always say, I think my IQ is solid. I wouldn't want to be tested though, because I think I'd be disappointed.
Me too. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of great ideas in there. And dude, the thing you said about there's always, what'd you say? How's it go again? There's always an answer, right?
There's always an answer.
There's always an answer.
Yeah.
And wow. That's for a later date. I want to talk a little bit more about some other things. It'll be on this other separate podcast, dude. I use a thing called my three columns, and I put the symptoms in the center and the root causes on the left, and then the answers are on the right. Right. So people are really good at the symptoms. Remember they list them off. I'm like, well, why do you think that? Then you talk about that. Then you finish the conversation. You say, come back tomorrow with the answers, and let people sit on it for a while. You'd be amazed at what they're jumping to in day one, but they've got one day to think about it. You should see the answers they come back with on day 2, right? There's always an answer. So great idea there, dude. Let's talk a little bit about specifically what you do. So who typically calls you, right? I think you're saying that typically the CEO at some kind of C-suite level, they've got 1 or 2 or 3 business problems. What are those symptoms look like?
Usually it's to the point where it's their problems have trickled down to their customers, right? Their pain points have leaked down to their customers, and it's they're spending money correcting their own mistakes, right? So they're bleeding money at some point, right? Where they're and it's really because it's process driven. The processes aren't followed properly, and it's no fault of their own. It's just, it's usually because that they've grown too quickly, and they haven't been able to keep up with the growth. That's usually the root cause of it, right? And they haven't been able to keep up with the growth, and it's just and it wasn't addressed, right away, and when you don't address it right away, it snowballs, right? And then then I'm usually the person that you call when it's bleeding out into your customers, right? So when your customers are calling saying they got the wrong product, they didn't get the right stuff, the wrong product was in the wrong box, these are the types of things, and then I come in and I help identify the root causes inside your facility, put the right processes in place, put the right people in place, make sure you're using your technology properly, or instill the proper technology if you don't have any, and then we get that whole circle, the technology, process, and people, we get that whole circle rolling the right way, and moving in the proper direction, so that your business is running efficiently and smoothly, and you're saving money, right, instead of flushing money down the toilet.
Yeah, and your CSAT's going back up. And this may be rhetorical, and I don't want to be too leading, but of the people, process, and technology challenges, how often is one occur more often than the other? What typically is the issue?
It's process related, right? It's a broken process, or there wasn't a process in place, or the process wasn't followed, it's usually it's most of my customers are because they've scaled too quickly, right? And it's just because, and they haven't of.
So they have a process, it just doesn't scale.
It wasn't addressed. They didn't grow, they didn't, so it was just, yeah. So, I mean, it happens. It's a good part of business, right? It's it's growing pains, right? It's part of doing business, right? But this is where I found where my niche, where I can help companies, like the sooner you call me, the easier it is to fix, right? And the less time I have to spend there with you.
I love it, man. And so it sounds like you and I both subscribe to the same philosophy, which is, I don't think it's often the people. I think that most people between 8:30 and 5 want to do the right thing at work. And I oftentimes feel it's the system or the process that corrupts, right?
Yeah.
There's some systems or processes at work that kind of force you to not do things the way you really want to do them.
Right.
I'm believing that. I know a lot of people who before 8:30 and 5, I'd love to hang out with them.
Yeah, no, the people are great.
But between 8:30 and 5, I'm running for the hills.
The people are your most valuable asset, right? It's not your inventory, it's not your building or your equipment. It's your people that are running your business for you, right? And it's just a matter of making sure that we have your people in the org structure, organized properly, right? And part of that is just making sure that it's organized, for your logistical purposes the right way, right? And this is where, like, my 30 years of doing it in 100 different ways, in union environments, not in union environments, just in facilities with over 250 people, and in facilities with 10 people, right? And just being able to, build it with people, with managers wearing many hats, managers with one hat, right? There's so many different ways that you can build out your org structure. It's just every business is its own, is its own living, breathing person, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, totally get it, man. Staying on methodology for a second, and I think I got this right. Maybe I hope it was a good listener. Is it T as in Tom, P as in Paul, P as in Paul, TPP? Activate? Is that the framework that drives this? And can you share with the audience what that means to businesses?
Yeah, TPP Activate. It's kind of just like my system, my system that I've originated. It's technology, people, process, right? That's really what it stands for. And we plug it in. Plug it into the wall. We activate it. We make sure that you have the right technology, or you're using your technology properly. Make sure that you have the right people, your people, doing in the right positions, doing the right jobs, the right org structure, and we have the right processes, right? And so you have the right processes in your facility, and the technology, will really just glue everything together, right? And make sure that the processors are being adhered to. It just we just kind of outline that whole map, and make sure that that whole that framework is being followed.
Appreciate that. So my next two questions are going to be an attempt to throw a curveball at the audience, The first question is going to be around your military experience. So, of course, now we're going to set in, and our audience should be thinking like, here's structure and discipline and all that. Then we're going to throw them a curveball with what I know is your ultimate secret sauce. And I wanted to say this to the end, but I feel like I can't. So, first question is the military experience. Tell us about how being in the military affected you personally and your knowledge around supply chain, et cetera. What was the military all about?
Yeah, so that's really where I got started with supply chain, right? Is right out of high school. I went into supply chain. It was in the medical supply chain vertical, right? So we did medical supply chain. And my first duty assignment was over in overseas, Landstuhl Army Regional Medical Center, right? So it was like the biggest hub outside of the United States, and we dealt with the whole Michael Durant, Black Hawk Down, all that stuff, Somalia, all those
Wow.
things,
Yeah,
all that
dude.
stuff. We dealt with all that stuff, everything. There was a lot of conflicts that happened outside of the U.S. That they brought everybody over there first before they brought them stateside to Walter Reed back in the early '90s. That's when I was there. So it was good. I learned a lot, right? And being a young man, not having lived on my own, at an early age, you learn a lot. You
Sure.
learn that you have to deal with other.
Feed yourself.
Yeah, you have to learn that you have to be self-resourceful, and you have to really learn to get along with other people and learn to rely on other people really quickly, right? And to learn to rely on teammates and stuff. So I learned a lot, like very fast, that life wasn't all about me, and you had to rely on others, and rely on myself, and I had to get myself up in the morning, and be at a certain, and I something that I still learn today, like I tell my kids this stuff, same thing. If you can't be on time, you got to be there 15 minutes early, right? So that's and that still drives me today, right? If you got to be, my wife makes fun of me about it, but it is what it is, right? It's just I got to be there early now. It's something that was driven into me when I was a young man in the military.
So we've spent the first 20 minutes primarily talking about structures and methodologies and processes and tech, and certainly the military experience would drive home that you've got a lot of those organizational skills, team skills, things like that. But what really didn't surprise me, man, what I really appreciate about you is when we were talking about, well, what really, really think separates you. And I'd love to steal this once in a while when I'm talking to folks, but you have a guiding principle that love always wins. And so here you are, a guy who can rock star all these more analytical, technical, rational things, but your secret sauce is love always wins. Talk to the audience about that.
Yeah, and I guess you can drop. I guess say I've been dropped in the most difficult situations, right, and had to find a way to adapt, right, and you need other people to succeed, right, in my role, and the only way that I found that to be successful is to be loving, and to show other people that they're important, and to get to know them, and to show people that they're important and that they matter, and and then I started taking that into, and I wasn't always this way. Trust me, I was
Sure, I
mean and
totally get it,
harsh at
dude.
one
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and I learned all
Yeah,
this the hard way, right? And I found that through a series of events that that, like, if I put other people first, and I let them you know let them know that hey, that that you know I mean, just let them know that they that just let them know that they, that they matter, right? And just get to know them, right? Get to know them, get to know them, let them know that they matter, their families matter, right? And that, um, and build that rapport with them. That breaks down the walls that they have with somebody like myself coming into like a warehouse where I've been hired to kind of come in and do what I've been asked to do, right? Because a lot of times people are obstructive, right, and aren't willing to work with someone like myself. So usually I take the most difficult person that's there, and that's who I try to build that rapport with, right? And then once that's done, then it's usually easy, right? So, but it's done through love, right? Not through like, hey, do it my way or the hard way. It's, you got to build that relationship by selfless acts.
Yeah. So two key points there. I mean, a lot of valuable information, but two key points there. One is you look for the most difficult person first, not the most agreeable. That's number one, right? You get to the agreeable one. And the second thing is, I think for a lot of my audience who, I don't know, if they worked in the 80s and 90s, they're going to struggle with what you're doing because I went through what you went through, which is in the 80s, there wasn't any compassion. It was you get there 5 minutes before the boss and you leave 5 minutes after the boss. And if you mention your family, you move down the rung, right? 80s. The 80s was, I mean, the 90s was just about hours worked, we got to put in the hours, get this done. And then we started to see a little bit of change in the 2000s. So if you worked in the 80s and 90s, this concept is foreign, right? It's right. Whereas if you started your career more in the 2000s or the 2010s, I think this is kind of expected, like being compassionate. I appreciate you sharing that because I think for the younger generation, they think this is normal and would hopefully that you do that. But for the older generation, I think it's really insightful to say, hey, it's okay, right? Like be vulnerable, be compassionate, work with a difficult person, even though that's counterintuitive to what you learned in the 80s and 90s. But it wasn't that long ago, dude. It wasn't that long ago where all the stuff you're talking about right now, that would have got you kicked out the front door.
Yeah. And it's not, amazing? I don't like it, and it's not something that I don't put on a PowerPoint and I sell it, right? It's just it's just it's a tool. It's it's a soft skill, right? It's an inner tool that I use, right? That's just, it helps me, get the job done, right? And I use it in my personal life, right? It helps me, win those tough battles when I need to,
Yeah. Hey, I remember talking to a friend of mine who's quite religious, and I said, hey, I had this big argument with my wife. It didn't go so well, and by the way, she was 100% wrong. I go, what should I do? And he goes, love her more. I go, I don't think you were listening, dude. We got an argument. She was completely unreasonable, very unfair, and all wrong. What do you think I should do? And he repeated that, saying, go love her more. And of course, I tried that. Surprise, it worked. Right, it worked. Because it wasn't about me. Right? It was about us and our relationship. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Jason, again, as smart as you are and successful you've been, I know that you believe that that's at the core of your success. Where were you born? And tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, no, I was born in just a suburb of Buffalo. I was pretty close with my mom and my dad. As a matter of fact, my dad and I, he's like my dad's like kind of like my best friend to this day. We're yeah, he's a good guy. We're diehard Bills fans, Buffalo Bills fans. We have season tickets. We've had them since the 90s. Same seats. So it's good. Yeah, my dad's he's the best of the best.
It's nice to have that kind of relationship with your dad, and also that you value it. And I know this is also going to sound rhetorical, but you do get a chance to tell your dad once in a while how much you appreciate him, right?
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned in our earlier talks a little bit about your grandmother having a real inspiration in your life, salt of the earth type person. Talk to me about your grandma.
Yeah, my Grams. She was
Grams.
yeah, she's like one of those people that just she was just like one of those people that just loved everybody, didn't matter who you were. She was a very religious lady, and didn't matter, like I was saying, not like you're like these religious people nowadays that like she's just didn't matter who you were, didn't matter, it just, you'd come to dinner, anytime, Christmas, regular Sunday dinner, whenever, just you needed a place to stay, you could stay at her house. Didn't matter, no questions asked.
Hmm.
She was just the best, the best person. Yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize. Or is she still with us, or did we lose her a little while ago?
No, Graham's passed. Yeah, she's been gone for a while.
Yeah, it's some of those experiences that I do wish I knew then what I know now. I'm
Right.
glad you got a chance to tell her how you feel. I did tell my grandparents that I love them and care about them. I do sometimes wish I had a little bit more time to say, yo, I really, really love and appreciate you. There's some cool things. Like my mom's mom was just like that. I mean, I think she's the one that taught me to just accept everybody out of the gate, embrace them, kind of don't assume the worst about anybody. And to your point, I think my grandmom did that for me. And hopefully those of us out there still have our grandparents or in-laws that are getting up there in age, take some time once in a while to tell them how much you appreciate them.
I tell my kids, you don't take your grandparents for granted. Like I would give anything like now to
Yeah.
just have one
Yeah.
day with any one of my grandparents, just to spend one day with them, and just hang out, and just talk, and spend the day with them.
Yeah.
Now, knowing what I know now, and just how much how much they knew, and just to talk, what they went through, just the stuff they went through, and the wars, and the depression, just yeah, just like all that stuff they went through. We have it easy, right? They went through some tough
Oh,
stuff.
they did, dude. Like my grandfather was in World War II, and as a kid, his stories about being in a dry riverbed and getting blown out of the riverbed by a tiger tank were fascinating. Mostly because he
Yeah.
lived. As a kid, you're not even thinking like, "Holy
Yeah.
crap!" But like to your point, I look back, I'm like, or the one where he said they walked into a barn, sent out a couple guys to scout the barn, and they turn a corner. On the other side of the barn is this enemy outfit, and he said, "Joe, if they had just sent their scout guys, an hour before we sent our scout guys, I would have been in an enemy prison camp instead of vice versa." I look back on that now, going, wow, what kind of courage did it take 24/7, right? To be able to do those things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'd be nice to still be able to tell those stories, right, dude, and hear them.
Right.
And thanks for sharing that too, because it makes me feel good about. I tell my kids all the time, especially when they were little, hey, yeah, Dad, when you're 30, yeah, Dad, they were like 10, and Mom says come over for Sunday dinner, and Grandma and Nana's there. Yeah, Dad, get your butt there. Right. My families are smaller, and there wasn't a whole lot of tradition. And that certainly has worked. Like when my mother-in-law is 94, comes to the house, my kids swarm to the house. And doesn't matter what the topic is, meatballs or what she paid for her purse, doesn't matter. And I appreciate my kids doing that. So this has been awesome, man. Tell the audience, where can we reach you? How can we connect? LinkedIn, websites, emails, whatever you feel is appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason Zapp at LinkedIn. Yeah. That's the best way to find me. You can get me, my phone number and my email are on LinkedIn. You can message me on there. That's the best way to see me, follow me. I post regularly on LinkedIn. Um, yeah, that's the best way to reach me, and to follow all the work that we're doing here.
Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm really appreciative that our good friend Fatiman thought of you right away. He said, hey, you got to talk to this guy, Jason. It's been awesome. I genuinely appreciate that you bring a combination of experience and skills and methodologies. Like that's Quest Foundation, but really, really want to thank you for sharing your love always wins philosophy. and the audience certainly appreciate that. Thanks for joining, Jason. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate you having me. Thanks again. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man. This brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
Magic in the Cloud podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.